What's up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. I'm here in San Francisco on what's probably like the gloomiest day I've had in the city in a very long time. There's basically no light. The sky is one giant diffuser, and because of that, I decided today would be a fun day to bring out the Leica M11 Monochrome. And on the Monochrome, I've got this old screw mount 50mm Leica Scimitar. This lens is very old, predates the Leica M mount. My goal today is to zone focus this lens and take some photos around the city. I'm gonna be at f/16. And you know, street photography on a 50 is about as classic as it gets, but it's also pretty complicated for me who doesn't do street photography very often. I'm much more comfortable with something like a 28, but we're gonna be on this 50 today on this Scimitar, and we're gonna see what we can get into and find. And the city's setting up for Christmas, and so of course, we're gonna have to go find a Christmas tree or two. And I keep saying we because I'm with my friend Douglas today from Southern California. He just started a YouTube channel. I'm gonna link it right here so you can check out his channel. All right, so we're gonna start our walk. We're gonna see what we can find and show you some photos along the way. Funny enough, we're about to have Kamala Harris's motorcade pass us. I wish it was President Harris's motorcade passing us, but you know, it is what it is. That Q2 is working out a little better than the 50 here, huh? Can't get anything. Everything's so far away. Zone focusing on a 50 definitely has its challenges. First, we need to understand what zone focusing is. So I'm gonna hand the video off to Studio Dave to explain zone focusing. Okay, so let's talk about zone focusing for just a minute because honestly, it's not overly complicated. I'm gonna use this 28 Summicron to demonstrate how zone focusing works. Let's take a look. When you look at a lens like this, you've got your aperture at the top. That yellow line, that's your feet. The white line under it, that's your meters. And then this is your zone. So it's pretty simple. How it works is you set your aperture. You then use your focus tab to set your distance. So let's say right here at 2 meters. And then you read on your zone what will be in focus based upon your distance and your aperture. So at f8 at 2 meters, that's going to give us a zone of about 4.5 feet on one side and maybe around 20 feet on the other. I mean, it's just a scale, so we're not going to get like super precise, but that tells me that if I go out and I shoot with a target set to 2 meters, I've got plenty of flexibility on either side to make sure I can nail focus when I'm set at f8. Now, if I close that down to say f2, what I've done is I've made my aperture at f2, and now let's say that I want to take this from 2 meters to 1 meter. I put the 1 on the arrow, see the arrow? Pointed at the 1. At f2, that is going to give me a range of about 3 feet to a little under 4 feet. So that's a very narrow range that's going to be in focus. So that would not be super practical for walking around and taking photos. I can also just set my distance to infinity. That's the infinity symbol. And that's going to tell me that everything, let's say I'm at f8, everything past 10 feet is going to be in focus. So that's how zone focusing works. What I typically recommend for anyone trying zone focusing is just set to 2 meters, look at your range, and get used to like shooting in that range. If you have a digital camera, like a digital Leica, you can really practice this just by setting that and walking around and trying to estimate what is 2 meters. Boom, that's 2 meters. Let me see if I got it. Even if it doesn't look right in your rangefinder window, chances are it still is right if the zone is set. Now, zone focusing is not proprietary to Leica. Here is an old Minolta, and guess what? Zone focusing. Same would be true on like this old Pentax. Zone focusing. It's even true on medium format cameras like my Rolleiflex. I've got a distance scale meter right here on this knob. And while it's not necessarily true working with the aperture for the zone, it still gives me the distance in which things will be in focus. I also have it on my Hasselblad. You can see the distance meter at the top. Almost every older camera lens system is going to give you a distance scale for when things are in focus, and using lenses like on a 35, like with the Leica or any other system, you have the zone scale as well that you can determine what's going to be in focus between point A and point B. Now, this does get a little more complicated with longer focal lengths, so let's take this 50 that I'm using in the street video in San Francisco, and you can clearly see this old lens, which predates the M, has zone focusing right on the lens itself. Here's a 50 Summilux on my Leica M11, and you can see that the zone is much tighter than the zone on the 28. And so on something like this, at f8 and 2 meters, I'm basically between about 5 3/4 feet and maybe 8.5 feet. So a much more narrow zone to shoot in. And if I take that up to say 90, look how narrow the zone is. That's not even practical to shoot in my opinion. And I'm sure there's great photographers that can zone focus on a 90. I'm probably not one of them. So that is zone focusing. Now let's get back into San Francisco. Thanks, Studio Dave. Oh, welcome to San Francisco, everybody.
That was nuts, dude. I feel bad for her.
So we've talked about zone focusing. Now let's talk about hip shooting. It's basically as it sounds. You shoot from the hip without pulling the camera up to your eye. This is like a really nice discreet way to take photos if you need discretion. Though I will just say that, like, not a huge fan of unintentionally making a photo. I think it's way better to actually compose. But you know, when you're walking around and you're just kind of like looking for a moment or just seeing you know, what you can find on a walk through a city. Sometimes hip shooting is kind of fun because you don't know what you got till you get home and look, and you might have some magical moment. I think hip shooting is a skill that, you know, you can almost learn like as you do it, especially when you repeat it with the same lens, which is something I'm not doing today. But it's like a skill that you can acquire, and as you hip shoot, you'll get better and better at knowing your composition. One quick tip with hip shooting is like when I look down on my Leica, if I can see the base of the lens, and I'm talking about that ring right there, if I can see that, it means that I'm level. If I see the logo, it means that I'm tilted too far back. And if I can't see the ring, I'm tilted too far forward. So even just learning how to quickly pull the camera up and know what level feels like, that's like a skill you acquire through hip shooting. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed our photo walk today here in San Francisco, shooting on the Leica M11 and that old 50 Scimitar. It's been a fun day. This weather started off really cloudy and gloomy, and it's ending better. So lighting was kind of fun throughout the day. It's always fun shooting in monochrome around a city. Something classic and timeless about it. So I can't wait to go home and actually look at the photos. We also got to see some crazy stuff today. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like. If you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.